John Thornton here, allproblogger.com. The NFL is back in business, and we've probably been at this thing for a little over a week. And a lot of things have changed for a lot of teams. Some teams stayed put. But it's good to be back and have football going again. Free agency this year has been the talk of the NFL. A lot of players moving, a lot of players changing teams, a lot of new money being given out, teams with a lot of cap space to do a lot of different things. And you saw a few marquee players get signed, a few marquee players stay home. Teams take a shot at people, didn't get them. They had their fallback plan. I think you saw what you saw this week was people had a lot of time to think about what they were going to do in free agency, and everything just happened so fast. So after about a week, things have slowed down, and you have the training camps open right now. And teams, number one, I talked to a lot of players, some coaches around the league. Teams have to, number one, find out what their current players can do. You can't just go out and sign a bunch of players without knowing what the guys on your team, the new guys on your team, can do. So I think this free agency market will sort of play itself out over the next few weeks, because right now, with the draft coming before free agency, it's just hard to evaluate your players, because in normal years, you'll have free agency and then you'll sort of evaluate your team and then go into the draft and then supplement your team that way. Now the draft sort of teams went after their needs, and a lot of the teams' needs are filled, and they're just, sprinkling in a few veterans here with free agency. But there's a lot of players out in the market right now that are good players, that are better players than guys on current rosters, but they don't have a job because teams have to wait and see not only how their young players practice, but how their young players react in the preseason games. And then they have to make a decision. Okay, can we win with this third round pick? Can we win with our second or even our first round pick? And then you'll see the market sort of change again. So I think what we've all reacted to the first week of free agency. What did our team do? This team did this. They're going to be great. But we still don't know, because I think rosters are going to change over the next few weeks a lot. If a team goes out and have a bad preseason game, believe me, they're going to go out there next week and treat it like a regular season game, where they're going to look to make some changes in their roster in a sense that, hey, if I can find a guy that's better, I know what he can do under the big lights now, I need to replace him. And while they still can, while the games don't count, they're going to go out and get some veterans to replace the young guys that don't perform. So, I look at the teams like the Patriots. They made some subtle moves. Getting Chad Ochocinco is not a subtle move in nature, but that was a subtle move in the sense that they went out and upgraded their wide receiver core. They added a great route runner to go along with Tom Brady, to go along with Deion Branch and Wes Welker and that whole cast of characters, the tight ends that they have over there in New England. That was a great move to me. I think that the Chad Ochocinco move is going to work. I think Chad is going to have one of his better years in the NFL with New England. Now, he might not have the number of catches and yards that he had in Cincinnati in his great years, but I think this is going to be a highly productive year. He's going to be in a national spotlight every week, something that he loves. And I just think it's a great move for the Patriots to make this decision to bring him in. To get Albert Haynesworth, I think he can perform there. That's not the system that he thrives in. But if he buys into what they like to do and the Patriots turn him loose, I think that he can be a productive player. He's going to be a little bit of a headache, but I still think he's worth bringing in. The Jets, the Jets were very aggressive in free agency. That's another team I really like what they did. They went out, they re-signed Santonio Holmes. They let go of Braylon Edwards, which I think was a great move. I think that, sometimes when you let guys go, you get better. And they brought in the Plexico Burris, who's a big receiver, a guy who fights for the ball. I wasn't a huge fan of Braylon Edwards. I think he's a decent player, but, I think Plexico Burris, if he can regain any of his form, he may be an upgrade to Braylon Edwards. And then the Philadelphia Eagles was the other team that I think that they did a really good job. They went out, they have a new defensive line coach in Jim Washburn. They went out and got some pass rushers. Babin is a really good defensive end under Jim Washburn. Cullen Jenkins was a really good player in Green Bay. I think he'll help him. Vince Young being a backup up there, I mean, that's a great emergency backup plan at quarterback position. And then, Nnamdi Asomugha, I think that he's obviously one of the top two corners in the NFL. So the Philadelphia Eagles went out and they really went after it. They're saying, hey, we got this money. We got a new CBA. Let's go after it. We feel like our team is decent. We have a good core of young players. Let's go after it. So you got to respect teams that, they're being aggressive. It's a risky move to go out and do that stuff, but they went out and did it. A team like the Carolina Panthers, who a lot of people are giving credit for spending a lot of money, I don't know how much better they got with the moves that they made. They re-signed some of their own guys who were on a bad team. So, you don't know if they're going to make a difference. So, they went out and spent a lot of money. I'm sure their fan base is happy. I don't know if that gets them out of the cellar in their own division, but you got to respect what they did. Here in Cincinnati, I feel like the Bengals are. I don't know what their plan is. They have a bunch of money. Over $30 million in cap space. They let go Chad Ochocinco, which we all saw that move coming. They have a young wide receiver core. I'm fine with that. I think AJ Green, Jerome Simpson, Andre Caldwell, Shipley. I think and even Jermaine Gresham. I think that those guys can. Those guys are great. Core to have a good young core. They still have a lot of learning to do in the game situations because a lot of them haven't played a whole lot as starters other than Gresham. But I still think that the Bengals have a really good young pass catching group. I worry about the quarterback position. I don't think Andy Dalton's ready. His arm strength is a question. I know it's a short West Coast passing offense, but I just don't know if he has a big enough arm to make some of the deep throws right now. Once he gets smarter, I think he'll make those throws quicker, sort of like a John Kitna where he can anticipate guys getting open and anticipate where the defense is going to be. So his arm strength won't be a problem then when he's smarter. So I really wouldn't be in a hurry to play him unless you're just saying, hey, Carson's gone, so we're going to play our young guy, and it is what it is. I think Bruce Gradkowski is a smart player. He's a gutsy guy, sort of like John Kitna, fiery. I think he can be the guy early in the season. And if it doesn't work out, the team's not winning. Andy Dalton's seen some things from the sideline that he thinks he can get in there and play, then you might go in there and play Andy Dalton. So, the Bengals, as far as free agency, they didn't go out and do much. They got some guys at a bargain. The big move was losing Jonathan Joseph. I don't understand how he became a free agent. If he was a priority for you, he should have been given the franchise tag, which would have been around $10 or $11 million for a cornerback. That would have been the safest way to keep him. I know he would have played under that franchise tag. I know he would have accepted the deal last year, which would have been a lot smaller than what he got. But I think what happened with the Bengals is once you let a player out the free agency and you let other teams come into play, somebody's always going to value that player a lot more than you do. Now, the Bengals may have valued him as a $35 or $40 million player, but the Texans valued him as pretty much a $50 million player. Now, if the Bengals didn't feel like he was worth $50 million, okay, I understand that. But my point is, don't let him get to that point. Don't let him get out to the market where he can shop his services and then he becomes overvalued. Because the Bengals, Jonathan Joseph missed a lot of games. He was one of your best defensive players, but he also got hurt a lot. So you may not want to invest a lot of money in him. But if you want to keep him and keep him at your price, then get his deal done before he gets to free agency. Stop all of the bargaining, this and that. Give him a good deal where he feels like, oh, I don't even have to go test free agency because this is a great deal for me. You can do that. Same way they did with TJ Houshmandzadeh. They didn't want to pay him a lot of money or they didn't want to pay him his price until the end, right when he had to make the decision with Seattle. Then he already went on a visit. Seattle has better facilities. And, you get wooed by another team and you feel better as a player. You're not going to go back home. You're going to go to that new team. So I think that's where the Bengals messed up. I don't fault them for not wanting to pay top dollar for Jonathan Joseph. I just fault them for not restricting him, with the franchise tag and then working on a new deal. So he can't have other teams involved. Now they have a lot of money, and hopefully they try to spend it to get better. I don't think they have to overpay guys, but if there's a space on your roster where, that there's guys that aren't performing and you can go out and get a player to perform better, I think they should do that because they are a competitive team. Last year they came out and they competed every week, and they weren't out of a lot of games. Even though their roster, they had a better roster last year. I just think that this team, if they really carefully put this roster together, they can go out and compete. Now, a lot's going to do with the quarterback position, but they have to make the defense stronger. I think they can get some defensive linemen and linebackers. And they can maybe add an offensive lineman or two. So that's my thoughts on the Bengals. That's my thought on a lot of the free agency winners here in the first week of the NFL season.